Hi everyone, we're gonna start. I'm here to corral you. I'm so excited to be here as a representative of the New School Creative Writing Program. It's our 100-year anniversary, centennial. We were founded in 1919. So not so new anymore, but still new in our hearts. And I'm just really excited to be here to open the evening for Cave Canem Foundation and these three incredible poets who are going to read tonight. I used to work for Cave Canem, so it's like really special to me to be here tonight and to represent. And also, it's special to me because Cave Canem is such an amazing foundation, and I am really looking forward to these poets sharing their work. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up Elizabeth Bryant from Cave Canem to introduce the poets.
Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Elizabeth Bryant. I am the Programs and Communications Manager at Cave Canem Foundation, which is a home for the many voices of Black poetry and an organization dedicated to the artistic and professional growth of Black poets. I invite you all to join our community and stay in the loop. You can visit our website, cavecanempoets.org. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Cave Canem Poets. You can also sign up for our mailing list, which is in the back, and learn more about our programs, take a spring flyer or a brochure. So I just want to let you know that coming up next week on April 16th, you can join us at our office in Dumbo to hear participants in Tiffany Unique Spring Workshop as they showcase original works that explore the limits of form. Then on April 25th, we will be at NYU for a New Works reading with Cave Canem Fellows Jericho Brown, Marwa Halal, and Koya Fagan Maples. They will be reading in celebration of their recent publications. Both programs are free and open to the public, and refreshments will follow the main event. Please also mark your calendars for our day-long tribute to the extraordinary living legend, Yusuf Komunyakaa, which will take place on Saturday, May 11th at NYU. As always, thank you so much to the New School, to Camille, to your incredible team, which always makes sure everything here runs so smoothly. Thank you also to Langston in the back, who will be selling books by our featured readers. I'd also like to thank our funders, the Lannan Foundation, the Whiting Foundation, Amazon Literary Partnerships, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Department of Cultural Affairs, and the New York State Council on the Arts. Now, on behalf of Cave Canem's Board of Directors and Executive Director Nicole Seeley, it is my pleasure to introduce this evening's poets, who will read successively in this order. Mitchell L.H. Douglas is used to fear, and it is through the portal of his poetry that he wants readers to consider the dreams, fears, and emotions of a Black man. In his own words, Douglas states, "I am complicated. I am a range of wild emotions and imaginations, and I want you, the person curious enough to dive in to a book of poems, to acknowledge all of this." He is the author of 3 poetry collections, Dying in the Scarecrow's Arms, Black Alphabet, and Cooling Board, a long-playing poem, which was an NAACP Image Award and Hurston Wright Legacy Award nominee. His poetry has appeared in Callaloo, The Ringing Ear, Black Poets Lean South, The Crab Orchard Review, and elsewhere. Douglas is a co-founder of the Affrilachian Poets, a Cave Canem graduate fellow, and associate professor of English at Indiana University, Purdue in Indianapolis. Alison C. Rollins didn't get into poetry. Poetry got into her. Like an object growing inside the body, she says, it is not always intentional, but yet it grows within until it is ready to be passed, and that moment can be full of relief and also pain. Rollins holds a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Howard University and a Master in Library and Information Science from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. A Cave Canem and Callaloo Fellow, she is a recipient of the Poetry Foundation's Ruth, Lilly, and Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Fellowship, as well as the 2018 Rona Jaffe Writers Award. Her debut poetry collection, Library of Small Catastrophes, is available tonight, but low-key is forthcoming later this month, so you should all get it tonight. And her poems have appeared or are forthcoming in American Poetry Review, New England Review, and elsewhere. Born and raised in St. Louis, she currently works as a librarian for the School of Art for the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. What is a poet? Amber Flora Thomas believes that poets are the shepherds of meaning. She says, "We see the point where the personal and the universal converge. We see the point where nature and the human collide. We can tell you about this nucleus in a single line, so everything you thought you knew about your life will snap into focus." Thomas is the author of 3 collections of poetry, Red Channel and the Rupture, The Rabbits Could Sing, and Eye of Water, which won the 2002 Cave Canem Poetry Prize. A recipient of the Dylan Thomas American Poet Prize, Richard Peterson Prize, and Anne Stanford Prize, her work has appeared in the New England Review, Tin House, and Callaloo, as well as Angels of Ascent, among numerous other journals, publications, and anthologies. She is a Cave Canem Fellow and faculty member, and currently she is an Associate Professor of Creative Writing at East Carolina University in North Carolina. Please join me in welcoming Mitchell L.H. Douglas.
Thank you all so much for being here this evening. My sister is here. I'm going to try not to embarrass her. But I have so many families that are here, which is good. Thank you. Lovely introduction. Camille, thank you. Alison and Amber. Cave Canem, I was raised in multiple writing families, and Cave Canem was one of those. And I would say that there would be no cooling board if I hadn't been in a Cave Canem workshop and was like, I need to work on the music of those poems a little bit. And it really was a reality check. Like Yusuf Kumanyaka going was also a reality check too, quiet as it's kept. But I need to tell you about this book because this is the book that wasn't supposed to be a book. I was working on a totally different project and had all these poems together. I'd done all this research and kept seeing all these headlines about people that look like me that were getting beaten by police, that were getting shot and killed by police, and thinking about the violence in our communities. And if you don't know about Indianapolis, we're a little bit, I call us gun-centric, and I think that's an Indiana thing. We're like the state that people go to get guns. When the gun, which is true, that's not made up. That's really what we are, because the laws are so lax. We had maybe about 4 or 5 murders over the weekend. Don't know why. These things happen. So this is what I'm dealing with and writing about these things. And I kept writing and putting these poems to the side. And I looked over and I had a book, and I was like, I need to focus on this instead of what I was doing before. And so I should say, being from Indianapolis and kind of always feeling like I live, even though I never met Etheridge Knight, my father did, under the tutelage of Etheridge. The book starts with a poem about Eric Garner called Lucy's, and the book begins with an epigraph from Etheridge Knight. Like putting a match in my mouth and striking the cigarette. Etheridge Knight. Lucy's. Right now, I shouldn't be the cigarette dangling from the mouth of the man you will ride like a derby horse to roses. His name, Eric, your bloodline, Pantaleo. Fuck persona, calculated throat clutch, note control. How can I mimic and sing through scream? For you, this is fantasy. The pony you've always wanted, a story to share in the squad room when the day is done and men of power fall into territorial pissing. Yes, he is bigger. Are you frightened? Yes, he is a man. Does the mass make him less? Is the story spinning your gears? Do you dream of besting the thin blue with the one that didn't get away? This is sport to you. The choke, grip, and spin, no applause, but you hold on, count seconds like cowboys do. Cigarettes, was it? I think I know the way this works, the hope and crash. Just bear witness, say the words. A man with a wife and kids is dead over Lucy's, and suddenly the centuries, 17th and 21st, have burns to share. So I got this idea for one of my poetry workshops that we were going to start in the city and not in the classroom. And I'm going to keep doing this until somebody says, this is crazy, we don't want to do this anymore. So I decided I was going to meet my class in the center of the city. If you know Indianapolis, it's called the Circle City. And so there is this roundabout circle, right, dead center of the city that has a monument on it that's basically a monument to all people that have served, anybody in Indiana that served in the war. So this is pretty much a monument to death and war in the center of the city. And so I think, what does that mean for the rest of us? So this is called Circle, and the epigraph it begins with, you can be able to tell this is where I got the title from the book. And the road twisted onto his loveless house and his cornfield, dying in the scarecrow's arms. Robert Hayden. Today, the sun has fists, not rays. Nothing delicate happens here. Watch the beating that goes ignored, the circle, evening, the monument and call of war, a common Indiana ranch with the roof ripped off. Baruch says the Midwest is sieve, pass-through, permanently in transit, flux. It is the get here to get there. The sun's map fist in an orange 6 o'clock beatdown. The tenants strewn about the concrete circumference, liquid in states of rest. Skin and bone poured over the curb of South Meridian, splayed beneath a mailbox, propped against a garbage can outside. The suits and walkers' heads turn, sidestepping the future they escaped, eyes on a latte, the next block. Today the sun has a better haymaker, a better uppercut, a wicked right-left combo. Today the sun is perfecting its roundhouse, and its size 14 keeps connecting left jaw, right jaw. You would cry, but there's no layaway for tears. So you cuddle up on the asphalt couch next to your brothers and sisters, the styrofoam maracas of cups and change, lulling you to rest like the pluck of kalimbas and turning signals. The bass lines, car horns hang in exhaust, cruising through your living room on an airless city night. So this book deals with lots of different kinds of violence. That could be daily microaggressions. That could be, losing your life, losing someone you know. This sounds like a joke, but it's not really a joke. Have you ever been in a used bookstore and seen a book signed to somebody else, and you wonder how that book got there? And you're sometimes I see books that people I know have sold back. And I'm like, I'm going to tell on you and tell this poet. Sometimes I rescue these books, but what happens is in this book, I have a series of poems about used books and trying to figure out the stories about the books. This is one, and I love this book and this poet. So this was called Abandoned, and it begins with the epigraph 121, 2011. Lyrae Van Cleef Stefano, crossed out. For Debbie, joy and blessings. Inscription in open interval. Debbie is not open to poetry. Her friend is mistaken. She takes the gift with a smile, promises to read every line her friend suggests. Andromeda, Ithaca, good so far. She is wrong. She does like poetry. So does he. They meet when Debbie opens interval at a campus coffee shop, the one where the long lines should warrant better brew. She nods, feigns interest in his story of an MFA, wanting to be a professor, an author. It's nice and all, but can't she see she's reading? And anyway, who goes in on career goals 5 minutes after hello? What would Lyrae say? Sitting with Matisse, unpacking flesh and outline. Well, something about him said Matisse, not the man, the process. His fade and focus like pink nude, abstract, realist, before settling on the weathered hip. What words would a poet string to spit shine soft pickup lines? Debbie sinks into the pages, leaves in such a spark, the book is abandoned. He attempts to read the poems, wonders if he can be an author after all, swears he will give Debbie the book back the next time he sees her, sells it for cash instead. So I kind of think that's a form of violence in a way. I hate seeing those books, so I'm rescuing them one by one if I see those. So a weird thing also that I think about is I'm from Kentucky. I'm from the South, Louisville, Kentucky, and I've been in Indianapolis for, since 2006. So I feel like the Midwest is really home. And then the more I thought about it, I realized that, I grew up in Iowa. Like, I actually started to write poems in Iowa City. I at one point thought about going to the writer's workshop in Iowa, but found Kevin Young was at IU in Bloomington. I was like, no, I'm going there. So I really do feel like now I'm a Midwest poet. But the thing that happens when you're growing up in the Midwest, and I grew up as this nerd in Iowa City, and we moved to Columbus, and things got really hectic, like really fast. And I didn't realize until later, I didn't find out that we moved to Columbus at the start of the crack era. So there were a ton of gangs in Columbus. Think about Columbus, Ohio. I'm like, thinking like, I'm not gonna move to Columbus and find any problems. Well, it started from the beginning of us living in Columbus. I've come to peace with that, kind of going back and seeing the city and spending time in the city kind of helped me get over this. And so this is called OHIO. You're welcome to the neighborhood. It's the Crips killing a dozen cousin 2 blocks down from the townhouse you just moved into. Shotguns and shells at the community center while you will take swimming lessons, sink like a Midwest boy out of time. This after punk rock and bitter beer in a church basement, bodies slamming against each other as if dying to be whole. This after you are fresh from cornfields, the silk selling wisps behind your ears. Years drift and you curse Columbus, wonder Little Paul, Ray, Stacy, Special K, the West High Good Times crew. Who is rotting in the belly? Who dared take another bite? Who got past probation officers visiting at lunchtime? Who endured the shaking hand, the gat they had to grip after school? Who can read any of this? Rise. Say I. When you go to school, and I hate to say that, but that's a true story. I had a friend that was like, I gotta handle a gun after school. Like, and his probation officer would come and visit him at school. This was kind of our reality in Columbus. I lived there for about a year, did first year of high school, and then got out. So I'm thinking about, I've got a new poem I think I should read for you. Kind of the reality of being a teacher is having students, and sometimes class is not the priority. One of my best poets stood up in a workshop and she was like, I have to leave. Something's happened to my friend, I need to leave now. This poem is a contrapuntal. You can read it down the left column, down the right column, and both columns together. So I'm gonna read you the left, the right, and then the poem together. And the poem is called It Is Tuesday, and my student leaves class. On a small scrap, rectangle, she says, a friend died, and poetry class is no place. Please. If you say, Professor, my friend is bullshit, can I tell you? Or the canyon in my chest, the exit, that's my friend, the sweet missing. Look, for real, I'm in mourning, okay? Her blood, but not. Try shaking a ghost pang, the blank until your curious eye bends, folds in on itself. A hunger. It is Tuesday, and my student leaves class over heroin, of paper torn to jagged, sorry, of an overdose, heroin, for an outburst, stay. I don't care, just died. This free write about her. Excuse me, I'm sure you see, and the hallway behind me, boring away, she. Or, it ain't none of your damn business, not her veins, another's. Her sour, still, and claw. Try living under empty to origami sky, night for familiar notes of light. It is Tuesday, and my student leaves class over heroin. On a small scrap of paper torn to jagged rectangle, she says, sorry, a friend died of an overdose, heroin, and poetry is no place for an outburst. Please, stay. I don't care if you say, Professor, my friend just died. This free write is bullshit. Can I tell you about her? Or, excuse me, I'm sure you see the canyon in my chest, the exit and the hallway behind me. That's my friend, boring away. She, the sweet missing. Or, look, for real, it ain't none of your damn business. I'm in mourning, okay? Not her veins, another's. Her blood, but not her sour. Still, try shaking a ghost's pang and claw. Try living under the blank until your curious eye bends, empty to origami sky. Night folds in on itself, a hunger for familiar notes of light. Thank you.
It is an absolute pleasure to be here. My first summer at Cave Canem in the first workshop, Amber Flora Thomas led the workshop, and I remember distinctly, I believe she gave us a prompt related to using animals in the context of poetry, and I wrote a lobster poem, which has never made it really past that room. But I loved the notion of surrealism and the notion of being able to merge nature and animals, and it was an incredible first experience. And I had the pleasure of hearing Mitchell read this past summer, I guess, at the Dive Dapper Poetry Festival, so I shared the Midwest sentiment. And Cave Canem will just, I can't begin to give language to the amount of gratitude I have towards it as a foundation, as an organization. And I'm gonna start with this poem. So I went to Howard University, a historically Black university for undergrad, and I never learned how to play the card game spades, which is very important because your Blackness in terms of identity can be highly measured in relationship to your ability to play spades, right? So my first summer of the Cave Canem retreat also, I was taken under the wings of other fellows and taught how to play the card game spades. So in the game, you make bids on how many hands you and your partner can win, and 5 and a possible is the title of this poem, which is a pretty strong hand for those of you that aren't aware. 5 and a possible. Spades is a way of life for Black folks. My mother went into labor in the middle of a game. I was born as 5 and a possible. She said she felt no greater pain than that loss, than when she turned away, shame-faced in the midst of kin, when certain bragging rights began to crown. They pulled my body from her diamond, held me up to meet her gaze, to study the odds of what a luckless God had given. An overbid could get you shot at grandma's house, could have you question the number of hearts you had in your hands. Everyone knew that my mother was the scorekeeper. She counted the books twice every round. There had been 3 before me. Babies my mother got but did not get. My mother taught me to watch a man's eyes when he deals, to cut the deck like his cord of wishful thinking. She'd warn in silence, don't talk across the table. Then demonstrate over dinner with my father, as the air held the weight of things unsaid. After the divorce and grandma's funeral, all the words in my mother for tired were tired, her hands folded like cards. The next poem I'll read is a cento, which means every line of the poem is taken from another poet, and many of the lines are taken from influences I have in relationship to Cave Canem. Amber has the line, Thai Freedom Ford, Nicole Seeley. I think it's 66 female identifying poets that I drew from to compose the poem. So I work as a librarian, and I very much see my work as ethical appropriation, or a notion of being in a tradition or canon that I'm constantly borrowing and building upon, but that nothing can be created in a vacuum or removed from its connection to other things in this overall solar system of our writing. And so it's called Cento for Not Quite Love. And did I leave him or dream I left him? My husband, this man who said, it is always better than neutral, which is to say, I'm sorry for having to love you this way. Took me 30 years to say, I lost my own name in the shower, brief and miraculous as the bees, bats, maybe, or owls, boxy mottled things. I married years before I carried within me sequins, sheet music, painkillers, any birds, flowers, people, words. If ever two were one, then surely we. They call it sacrifice. Imagine me, a tiny poppy, afraid of my clumsy body, that impossible weight, the not quite love. But I stayed silent because you were smiling, and because I'm never happy. You were a collection of any shape against a window, of the intentions I only half believed at the time. Say, I am a professor from the University of Stupidity. I think from this distance, the goldfish of my genius hates you. I want to go in the backyard now. I bet there are forests out there. Tell me, is pain the garden's only plan? My face is covered in fruit flies, too many bugs, and I want a divorce. I practice the work of worms. I am that woman knitted into place. I was accustomed to being sown with moon-caked madness. I've been pregnant. I've had sex with a man who exposed the hairy, buff eggs of a girl gazing at the moon. There is a baby in my blood. I love and yet am forced to seem to hate. I can't stand myself. And so my love is awkward and ill-timed. This is my gift, being missed. The horses dressed in hooks. My body is a gift to climb in. I'd swim the sea, water waving forever, fresh as stars. We don't just forget the words for love. We soak teeth. We try not trying for a while. I have been woman as other creatures that have eyes because I see. I am what I have seen. We used to lie eye to eye, breathing together, close to the nights, by the light of whatever would burn. This is how it is with love. Cruelty comes easy for some. To withhold love, there too must be machines. Say the heart is an ungodly machine. Shed the machine. Cherries hemorrhage in their bowl. My own toothbrush. My black wig on the chair. I never meant it will hurt like a clue. What is a home? A guarded space, domestication. Sit in me and ask me where I have been, and my body answers beneath that slow setting sun. This lust is not heterosexual, and this is not a confessional, pressed like stubborn flowers. It's not a goodbye fuck, because no one knew I break things. There is no homonym for disappearing, only the last of this blood, the instance of our parting. Nothing but craggy skeletons of a winter. The next poem I'll read is written in tribute to my maternal grandmother. My mom grew up in Queens, and my grandmother moved from New York to St. Louis when I was born and picked my sisters and I up from school every day. And she had this very East Coast sensibility about her. She felt that she was, and was arguably, the best dressed person in this Midwest town of St. Louis. We bought the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and the New York Times every day in direct change, exact change. I would run out of the Toyota Camry into the store, buy those two papers, and get back in the car. The car was also not air conditioned because she believed that was a waste of gas, so it would be very hot. And she just had this incredible sense of, I don't know, just style and this grace that seemed so cultured and cosmopolitan. And so my mother is an only child, and when she passed, I remember, as the eldest of my mom's children, this kind of trauma, right, about how do I determine what I'm going to keep from this parent that passed away, right? What are the things that hold some type of actual financial value, and then what are the things that we value and have memory and nostalgic elements to them, right? So if you had to kind of name or decide for yourself or for your loved ones, what would those objects be? This poem is really grappling with that notion. So all of the things in the first section are things that I associate with her out of a long list of items. Public domain. You catalog by hand, playing librarian in your dead mother's house. Try to justify archiving each item. A balanced checkbook, mothballs, Lifesavers mints, back copies of the New York Times, frozen chicken pot pies, the yellow pages, expired Lorna Doone cookies, pantyhose, a pair of Daniel Green slippers from Lord & Taylor, flat Canada Dry ginger ale. You find a little girl hiding in Mr. Rogers' mustard sweater, so on and so forth, threading needles with pubic hairs discovered in the carpet, surreal smells, the pine sol dying down in the bathroom. Which was your father's bad ear? The one that lost most of its hearing in the war? There is life in the eyes unspoken. Your very pulse, a secret algorithm, a software designed to track your browsing history, an open casket on view for the whole church to see, her genetic code made available for live streaming. You copyright the notes in the margins of her Bible, the intellectual property preserved, shaky cursive, her signature trademark. Upon the fall of a domestic sphere, a pocketbook is emptied of all its valuables. To become takes a long time. Blue spells are periods of red where you pause, the body calculating the losses. And lastly, I think I will close with a poem called Why As We Americans. And this was written after an Amiri Baraka poem. I don't have an MFA, even though I work also at an art and design school. And I remember getting the Def Poetry Jam DVD in college. And while everyone else was watching, I guess that was circa the time of Dave Chappelle's like DVD collection of the show. And I'm trying to think of other like period pieces. I don't know. People were watching Dave Chappelle, and I just distinctly remember I was watching Def Poetry Jam over and over and over again and trying to memorize the poems. And I remember Amiri Baraka's performance on there, and he started out like, ba-dee-da, ba-dee-da, da, ba-dee-da. And I was like, oh, this is dope. Like, and Sonia Sanchez was on there. And I later went on to meet many of the people that were featured on there that I really enjoyed. And I somehow in my mind, I just thought no one else in the world is paying attention to poetry in this particular type of way. And I think growing up also in St. Louis, there wasn't really a large poetry slams team or like a large scene in the ways that maybe a Chicago or other cities had. And so I was just myself with this DVD. I don't even think I had a DVD player. My dad is here. I don't think I even had a DVD player. I'm not sure how I watched it now, actually, but anyway, this is also kind of pre-YouTube and the ability to like just get videos really easily. So this is after the Amiri Baraka poem, Why As We Americans. Why as we Americans? We as gator teeth hanging from the rearview mirror as sickle cells suckle at Big Mama's teats. We as dragonfly choppers hovering above Walden Pond. We as spinal cords shedding like the skin of a cottonmouth. We as Psalm 23 and the pastor's chattering chiclets. We is a good problem to have. We as throats constricting and the grape juice of Jesus. We as roach and mingus and birdland. We is body electric, eyes watering with moonshine, glossy lips sticky with lard. We is half-brothers in headlock, arm wrestling in the dirt. We is Vaseline rubbed into knocked knees and cracked elbows. We is ham hocks making love to kidney beans. We is Orpheus, lyre in hand, asking, do we have a problem? We is the backstory of myth. We is sitting horse and crazy bull. We is brown paper bags, gurgled belches. We is hooded ghost and holy shadows roaming Mississippi goddamned. We is downbeats and syncopation's cousin. We is mouths washed out with the blood of the lamb. We is witch hazel coated backs sucking on peppermint wrappers. We is the spiked antenna of a triangle-faced praying mantis. We is barefoot, tongue-tied hogs with slit throats and twitching bellies. We is sun tea and brood bitches. We is the crying pussies that stand down when told to man up. We is Radio Raheem and Zoot Suit Malcolm. We is spit slick low cuts and fades. We is scrappy black masked coons and turkey-necked bullfrogs. We is the pits of arms at stake, the clouds frothing at the mouth. We is swimmers, naked, private parts allegedly fondled by Whitman beneath the water. We is late lurkers and castrated tree limbs on the Sunday before last. We is red-veined pupils and piss-stained knickers, slat-jogged and slumped in the bathroom doorway. We is whiplash and backhanded ways of settling grief. We is clubbing woolly mammoths upside the head, jamming fingers in Darwin's white beard. We is coming, round yonder, pigeon-toed and bow-legged, laughing our heads off. We is lassoed cowboys swinging in the sweet summer breeze. Thank you.
See, I tried to write a little intro here, and I just wanted to make sure I thanked the new school and also Cave Canem for inviting me to read. I don't think it's a small thing to be asked to read, to be recognized as a voice when there are so many incredible voices in American poetry right now. So I'm just very honored to be here. I remain one of those writers who is very introverted, like most of us, but my introversion is very, it's to a fault. I struggle with, promotion and kind of getting myself out there. So I do think that it's incredible that CC keeps asking me to read when, it's like their pursuit. They have to come find me hiding some hollow down in the North Carolina or last time up in Alaska. Okay, so I'm mostly a nature writer, and so I'm gonna read. I say I'm a nature writer because I come from places that are, situated in the natural world. I think if I was raised in New York City, I'd probably write about cities. It just so happens I've always grown up in the country. But I'm trying to move, through that a little bit and around that and think about nature in a broader way, to think about it as climate change, and to think about what is our relationship with the natural world and what's happening in the world right now. Red Channel and the Rupture, which is my new book, begins that conversation that really is asking readers to consider place a little bit. I'm starting to move in that work away from memory towards climate and place, but I'm really making that transition in the newest book that I'm working on. And so I'm going to read some from Red Channel and the Rupture, and then I want to finish by reading some newer works. Orchid. Down in the holy and maiden, where the singing is, where you drink and cup the rain and cling to an Everglade mound, the narrow throng, where amethyst deepens into black, a place waiting in the animal night to be scooped up or left alone, the frill labellum, the shroud where the shoot births unfurling tongues that couldn't hide their waves when I brought you to the nursery. All around you, a light that put the pearl in there and kneaded it like a pit some girl could spit into her palm. I'm gonna jump around here. Another thing that I do in this book is I visit my main landscapes, which are North Carolina, New Mexico, and Northern California. So this is Take Only Pictures, Tent Rocks, New Mexico. After the last rain, in runnels between rocks, obsidian blinks through red and pink crust. At the other end of the canyon, Mom leans her camera over Indian bush and stops to push blonde flyaway under her hat. Out through the teeth and eons ago, a cleaving of lava cooled quickly into glass, a continent's birth. Today, I know how to maneuver beyond the trail in sign. Even warning, falling rock doesn't hold me back. Usually under quartz, the black eye waits. I rub dirt from the opaque luster and tuck it into my purse. I pull my face away from the ground. This is amazing, I yell into the canyon. She moves toward me now, looking out at the mountains. She'll burn. I worry about her paleness this way. Somehow she was strong enough to bear my brownness into the world. We are all people of color and we don't see color. Two mantras assuaging questions about race as far back as I can remember. At the red earth, in these rocks, digging out the eyes, balm for someone's claim, betrayed and renamed, I carry the uncertainty of both roots, and they are at war in me. Have you found enough? She yells. Back on the trail, I show her a fist of obsidian. Why are they called Apache's tears? I ask. Honor is lost named. By then, we were out of the canyon and climbing to where she parked the car on the road. Some flowers dip their blazing heads over the trail, and every single one of them gazes into me. Neighborhood boys. I climb out of every song the mockingbird tries to watch an evening battle with pine cones. Neighborhood boys twist and duck between needled grenades, scuttles across the pavement, cars crushing the mess which will wait for the street sweeper on Tuesday, jubilant miss, lucky cover, inevitable pout for a nicked ear, arcing hits, cleaving open the pincushion of a bleed. And further down the bruise begins, getting even and getting good with their aim, jeans tugged up every third step, noses rubbed inside elbows, ha, wasted and sore until my yard is cleared. The middle school boys who traded marbles at recess returning just now with the bargain my 5-year-old self took because they were willing to lose a blue wave inside a clear sphere if I followed them into the woods. The glass beaded by a half moon of air bubbles no one had breathed in decades. Finite source teaching me it is possible to get stuck anywhere. I traded the marble away or lost it because I couldn't remember the girl stepping out of the woods, the bird in her turning its ruddy shoulder toward the light, thankful she got to live, that while they tried to kill her, they could, in the end, let her live. And on this street where boys war with pine cones, somehow I owe them my life. And just one more from the book. Everything you can burn. With your stick, pushing it into embers, the flag burns out, a stars and stripe offering in bright blaze, then pithy black scattering over coals, changing the story, though you should not just burn anything, even if it burns itself out. Built-in ignition warnings and whistle talk, hiss. Spiders crisscross their climbing into sparks and enter an ashy ascent, broken away as a current must take the shore with it eventually. A story disguised by flaming doll heads returns to the mountains. The raft glances off rocks, and men in orange life vests drop into a whirling torrent. Pop, pop. You can't stop the tinder of other stars amassed as filament, more than breath, and disappearing through the trees, or interrupt the teller and dig out the sap pool because it sizzles awake. To burn low is to go black. Remember this. And the embers cleave red birds on the earth, the winged rise, torn into ravens by the smoke. It's so hard to finish a book and then read from it a lot and then start working on a new project because you get so excited about the new project. I'm so excited about my new project, but I know eventually I'll finish it and then maybe it'll get published and then I'll move on to something else and it'll seem so I don't know, not the same. So this is very, very new, and I think it's going to grow, but I'm going to read it anyway because I kind of need to hear it out. Redemption. I saw the swans again, heard Bob Marley above cafe noise singing Redemption song. I remembered that even dying, I will be alone. Freedom comes to me through this too. With their long necks and tucked wings, the swans make infinities. Beaks buried in their feathers breathe into their own bodies. I speak to my body, why must you fail? You are the temple, the world against skin, particle and anima, energized by connection. I don't want to be lonely, even if my other freedom is earth, written in the street late light. Together, two swans loop their necks through a Celtic cross. I know love is meant to find me. I thought about dying in the tapestry curled into my attention near a ceiling fan, bringing me back to Off Clint's Swan series, which were to be placed in the middle of a temple she imagined at the end of the journey. Swans whose beaks touch at the horizon between here and there, not a distant holy place, but the holy, holy of emancipation, which is already with us. A song reaching above the clatter of dishes, the cry of a streetcar, and I reach back, sour of leaving. Friday morning, Niagara Falls. Along the curved railing, 5 languages converge into intolerances for wetness. A red umbrella sucked out of a fist disappears over the precipice. Everything converges. A guide stops his group to tell about Canadian geese raised upriver. Goslings learning to swim get caught in the current and often can be seen leaping at the fall, their unformed wings blunt propellers at the edge. You leap at the precipice, no other way to enter a convergence which cascades, plummets, slams into rock 60,000 gallons of water, bunny ears and peace signs held above heads in photographs. Sometimes you live through convergence, split and split again, torn, membrane thickening until your mother knew you were coming. That trembling made her nauseous, your dreams kicked along her belly, her bones moved open, you tore her again. She cried as you were laid between her breast, agate marbled in mucus and blood, blue into pinking. She smiled and laughed, love all at once, a convergence. Over the river, cottonwoods stretched their shadows, all the roaring and tearing sucked back into crowns at sundown. A story dismantling their grip on earth when the water increases and shores go. Trees who've spent hundreds of years beside raging force will know how to enter the fall. This morning, even I let my shadow enter the river, remembering the way we are all going, and though it is terrible at first, we must eventually converge with everything. And I'm going to read, I'm going to read 3 more. To home. The 3rd mile, and by then the mountain flattens in the river's green trench. I am looking west. Horses corralled beside banking shadow slouch in the heat. Deep breath flares in a muzzle marbled by dust. Velvet wrinkles as she takes the grasp. A single water bead running from her nasal cup. She crushes the grass into its last rain, quieting as a cloud's brief journey cools. Her eyelids lower, she wakes again, pawing the earth. I give her handfuls from the ditch along the road. Breath rattles through her belly, sleeping while eating habitual. The jaw's slow evolutions work in her eyes. Sweat starts inside my elbow where her head rests. I slip back into forms I recognize, shapes I can take up again. Thick through the flank, rough coat shivering about a horsefly. Everywhere else is gone. Navarro Estuary. I have learned to recognize truth as a country. I stand at the mouth and think about crossing. I hear my words lettering themselves out of you. And if I owe you some semblance of silence, I tried because a brown girl looks good in a yellow dress, the billows below her knees, V-neck ruffling to the under. I have found many silent places in which to look forward, in which to claim, you did not change me. While I walk deer trails reserved for hoof, where a sparrow hangs on a frond and scatters to 3 arrows in the sun, I turn back, my weight wearing the trail too deep. I am not in the right shoes. The lines I still edit go against God. You made me against him, you. I am particularly hard-headed. I drank too much rum at a college party and walked into a tree. My black eyes were funny. I could always do terrible things to myself and not remember. I don't need an invitation when the sound is caving under my shoes at the mouth. The speaking is an unavoidable silt from the mountains where they logged old-growth redwoods and the hillside slipped, no rushing to river, jammed up and muddy, roaring about what can enter the sea, what is leaving the river. I can stand here all day and love you, hate you. The chords play silver in the waves. I have found the truth should be spoken about. Okay, thanks for listening, and this is my last poem. This is deep, a practice. I'm writing to you from a place I love. I hiked in at 4 a.m. because I couldn't sleep. I made sure to bring enough water. I'm learning to read my compass. The cacti have yellow flowers, which make me think of lemons, which makes me thirsty. Can a place be broken? I've been considering a hypothesis concerning the Pacific Ocean, possibly the site of a massive crater where a meteor hit at the Earth's beginning, a cataclysmic event gorging out a part of the planet so large it was forced into orbit, giving us the moon. What moonlight illuminates in the desert is crescent, dark slivers smiling around rocks, and in runnels made from floodwater, shadow snakes, suggesting too a typography of the human gut. I can follow neither arrangement as I write to you this morning. I'm sitting on a rock in an arroyo. I've unzipped my jeans to let the air on my skin. In the Pacific, at a level known as Challenger Deep, are species we can't know. You can't even dive that deep or go simmering into a place where you hope you have enough breath, or you hope you can stay down long enough until the shattering settles into a song. Why am I crying in the desert? You probably don't need me to tell you how a wound heals. I'm writing to say it's not too late for either of us to be happy. Thank you.
Please, one more round of applause for Mitchell L.H. Douglas, Alison C. Rollins, and Amber Flora Thomas. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to the new school. There are books and refreshments in the back. Please talk to our poet, sign up for Cave Canem's mailing list, and we hope to see you soon.